Every room you walk into is full of unspoken words. People are constantly telling you who they are, without saying a thing. The question is, are you listening? Unlocking the secret to reading people instantly isn't about tricks or manipulation. It's about awareness. It's about tuning into what's already there, so you can connect deeper, protect your energy, and make smarter choices in every interaction. When you meet someone for the first time, before they ever open their mouth, before they ever tell you their story, their eyes are already speaking. The eyes are the first window we have into who a person is in that moment, not just who they want you to think they are. You can see a person's energy, their intentions, their truth, and their hidden struggles reflected in that small space between their eyelids. When people say, "the eyes never lie," it isn't just a poetic phrase, it's a practical truth. Eyes are the place where emotions break through before the brain has a chance to cover them up. They reveal stress, they reveal joy, they reveal distance, and they reveal warmth. If you want to unlock the secret to reading people instantly, the eyes are where you start, because they are the fastest, most unfiltered signal a person sends out in every interaction. Think about the times when someone told you everything was fine, but their eyes told you the exact opposite. Their words were polished, calm, even convincing, but their eyes gave away exhaustion, sadness, or fear. That disconnect between words and eyes is where truth hides. When you learn to notice it, you stop taking everything at face value. You begin to recognize that sometimes people are protecting themselves with language, but their eyes still carry what they can't control. And in those moments, you gain a deeper understanding of what's actually happening under the surface. That ability allows you to respond with empathy, caution, or strength, depending on what the situation calls for. The eyes are also about direction. Where someone looks and how often they shift their gaze tells you about comfort and discomfort. A person who holds eye contact too long may not always be confident. They might be overcompensating, trying to prove themselves, or even hiding something. On the other hand, someone who avoids eye contact isn't always insecure. Sometimes they're showing respect, sometimes they're carrying anxiety, and sometimes they're simply processing information. The key is not to assign one meaning, but to notice the pattern. What do their eyes do when they are at ease? What changes when they are under pressure? What shifts when the conversation goes somewhere vulnerable? Eyes are a map that guides you to those answers, if you're willing to watch closely. Another powerful truth is that eyes mirror energy. If you walk into a room tense and guarded, people's eyes will often reflect that back to you without a word. If you come in calm, grounded, and open, you'll notice eyes softening, pupils widening, expressions relaxing. It's not manipulation, it's resonance. People's eyes respond instinctively to the energy they feel. This means that learning to read others begins with being aware of what your own presence stirs in them. Sometimes the look in their eyes isn't just about them, it's a reflection of the signal you are sending. That awareness changes the way you connect, because you're not only reading eyes, you're reading the interaction between yours and theirs. Even tiny details matter: the quick flicker of a glance at the floor, the narrowing of the eyes for half a second, the sudden brightness when something excites them. These are not accidents, they are messages that bypass words completely. A forced smile can disguise a lot, but the eyes will betray it. They won't shine, they won't crinkle naturally, and you'll feel the difference. Once you've trained yourself to notice those subtle cues, you start moving through conversations with a kind of quiet clarity. You don't need to call it out, you don't need to challenge it, but you know more than what's being said. That knowledge protects you from being misled, and it helps you connect with people who are craving to be seen beyond their surface. There's also a cultural and situational context to consider. In some settings, long eye contact is a sign of honesty and attention. In others, it might be seen as disrespect or aggression. Understanding these nuances allows you to interpret eyes accurately rather than making quick judgments. What remains consistent across every culture, though, is the way the eyes show emotion. Fear dilates pupils, anger hardens the gaze, love softens it, stress causes rapid blinking, boredom makes eyes wander. These are universal truths that connect humans across language and background. When you pay attention to these signs, you realize that no matter how different people seem, Their eyes reveal the same raw humanity. The eyes also hold memory. When someone is recalling something genuine, their eyes often shift in specific directions as they access stored information. When they are fabricating or trying to conceal, the movement looks different. This doesn't mean you can always spot lies instantly, but it does mean the eyes give you hints about whether a story is coming from a place of truth or invention. Pair those hints with body language and tone, and you gain a sharper sense of authenticity. When you practice this skill, it becomes second nature. You'll notice eyes in everyday conversations, in meetings, in casual encounters at the grocery store. You'll see people light up when they talk about something they care about. You'll notice the quick flash of doubt before they cover it with a smile. You'll pick up on fatigue, even when someone insists they're fine. And over time, you'll learn to trust those signals more than the rehearsed words people sometimes use to protect themselves or impress others. When you're trying to understand someone, it's easy to focus on what comes out of their mouth. Words are polished, practiced, and carefully chosen to present an image, but the body rarely rehearses. The body leaks truth through posture, movement, and small gestures that most people overlook. If you want to unlock the secret of reading people instantly, body language is the second layer after the eyes. It's louder than words because it's harder to control. It's the broadcast that slips through no matter how well someone thinks they're hiding behind what they say. Think about the difference between someone saying, "I'm confident," while standing with slouched shoulders, arms crossed tight, and their weight shifted uncomfortably. The words and the body don't match. That mismatch tells you everything you need to know. On the other hand, when someone walks into a room with their chest open, shoulders relaxed, feet planted firmly, and gestures that flow naturally with their speech, you don't need them to say they're confident, you feel it. The body is always transmitting, whether or not the person is aware of it. One of the most revealing aspects of body language is posture. The way a person carries themselves signals their state of mind long before they speak. Upright, open posture communicates presence and readiness, while closed, hunched, or withdrawn posture often signals discomfort, insecurity, or a desire to retreat. These aren't absolute. Sometimes someone slouches because they're tired, but when you see the posture change in response to a question, a topic, or a person entering the room, that shift becomes significant. It's the context around the posture that reveals the truth. Gestures are another powerful signal. Some people talk with their hands, some keep them locked down, some fidget without realizing it. A tapping foot, a clenched fist, fingers drumming on the table. These movements often reflect what the person is feeling but not saying. If you ask a tough question and their hands suddenly retreat into their pockets or under the table, that reaction tells you more than the words that follow. If their hands open and move freely while explaining something, it signals honesty and comfort. The more natural the gestures, the more likely the person is aligned with what they're saying. The more restricted or exaggerated, the more likely something is being hidden or forced. Even proximity and space are part of body language. Notice how close someone chooses to stand or sit next to you. People who are comfortable, open, and trusting usually close the gap naturally. People who are guarded or unsure keep distance, angle their bodies away, or lean back. That physical space is a nonverbal statement about the level of connection they feel in that moment. It's not about invading boundaries, it's about noticing how they use space to communicate safety, trust, or discomfort. Facial expressions tie into body language as well. A smile can be genuine or forced, but the difference shows up in the muscles of the face. A real smile engages the eyes and softens the rest of the face, while a forced smile sits only on the lips. A tightened jaw, flared nostrils, or a sudden stillness in the face often signal stress, anger, or restraint. Even if the words stay smooth, the body can't hide the surge of emotion. When someone's body language freezes while their words keep flowing, it's usually because they're trying to hold something back. Breathing is another subtle yet telling signal. People under stress breathe higher in their chest, faster, and more shallowly. People who are calm and grounded breathe lower, slower, and more evenly. You can pick up on this just by watching their shoulders or the rise and fall of their chest. When someone takes a sudden deep breath before answering, it may mean they're buying time or preparing themselves emotionally. When their breathing smooths out, it usually means they're regaining comfort or trust in the conversation. It's also worth noticing mirroring, the way people subconsciously copy the body language of those they feel aligned with. If you lean in and they lean in, if you gesture and they mirror that gesture, it signals rapport. If they resist mirroring, if their body stays closed off or angled away, it often signals distance or disconnection. This doesn't mean you force mirroring to manipulate. It means you observe it as a natural marker of alignment. The key to reading body language isn't in single gestures but in clusters and shifts. Crossing arms doesn't always mean someone is defensive. It might just mean they're cold. But if arms cross, shoulders tense, and their body angles away all at the same time after you bring up a sensitive topic, that's a pattern you can trust. Similarly, if someone's posture relaxes, their gestures become freer, and their body angles toward you as the conversation goes on, it's a signal of growing trust. Patterns matter more than isolated actions because the body speaks in consistency and change. The beauty of learning to read body language is that it deepens connection without a word being spoken. You begin to sense when someone needs space, when they need reassurance, when they're open to listening, and when they're shutting down. You don't need to call it out or expose it. You simply respond with awareness. You give space when space is needed. You soften your tone when tension rises, and you stand firm when someone's body language signals aggression or manipulation. The body is the first conversation, the words are only the second, and when you learn to read the first one, you're always a step ahead. When people speak, we tend to focus on the words they choose, but the tone of their voice often reveals more than the message itself. Words can be crafted, memorized, and rehearsed, but tone slips through in real time, carrying emotion in every rise and fall, every pause, every shift in volume. If you want to read people instantly, listening to tone of voice is just as important as watching their eyes or body language. The way someone says something often holds the truth that their actual words are trying to cover. Tone is the emotional fingerprint of speech. You can hear excitement without being told someone is excited. You can hear frustration without hearing the word angry. You can detect nervousness in a shaky delivery, sarcasm in an exaggerated pitch, or indifference in a flat, monotone response. Even when people try to sound composed, subtle changes in tone betray what they are actually feeling. That's why conversations can feel off when someone's tone doesn't align with their words. They might be saying, "I'm fine," but their tone tells you the opposite. Once you train yourself to listen for that mismatch, you stop taking words at surface level and start hearing the deeper truth underneath. Volume is one of the clearest indicators. A sudden increase in volume often signals stress, defensiveness, or the need to assert control. A sudden drop can signal hesitation, vulnerability, or retreat. Some people speak loudly as a habit, but when you notice shifts in volume mid-conversation, that's where the meaning lies. If someone who is speaking steadily becomes quieter when a certain topic comes up, you've found an emotional trigger. If their volume spikes unexpectedly, it's usually a sign of resistance, pressure, or heightened emotion. Pitch is another giveaway. High-pitched tones often accompany nervousness or insecurity, while lower tones tend to project authority or calm. But again, the key is in the shift, not the baseline. A person whose voice suddenly rises in pitch when answering a difficult question may be masking discomfort. A voice that drops lower than usual might signal an attempt to assert dominance or control. Listening for those changes allows you to map emotional reactions in real time. Pace is just as important. People under stress often speak faster, racing through words to either get them out quickly or to avoid giving themselves time to be questioned. On the other hand, slowing down can signal careful thought, but it can also mean hesitation or fear of saying too much. If you ask someone a direct question and they start speaking unusually fast, it often means they're trying to distance themselves from the pressure of the moment. If they stall, pause, or drag their words, They may be searching for the safest answer. These pacing cues become even clearer when you compare them to the person's natural rhythm of speech. Pauses are one of the most telling features of tone. Silence in speech isn't empty, it's loaded with meaning. A pause before responding can mean reflection, hesitation, or concealment. A pause after speaking can mean they're waiting for your reaction, testing the weight of their words. Some pauses are deliberate, but many slip out unconsciously when emotions take over. The more you train yourself to notice when silence appears and what it follows, the more you'll understand what's happening behind the words. Inflection, the rise and fall of voice, also carries hidden messages. A sentence that ends on an upward inflection can sound uncertain, as though the person is questioning their own words. A downward inflection often signals confidence or finality. People who want to appear agreeable sometimes end statements with a questioning tone, while people trying to assert authority drive their inflection down sharply. These subtle shifts can change the meaning of a statement completely, even when the words themselves remain neutral. Tone also reflects authenticity. Genuine excitement, anger, or sadness resonates in the voice with a natural flow that's difficult to fake. Forced tones, on the other hand, feel strained or exaggerated. You've probably heard someone try to sound happy while their tone betrays exhaustion, or someone pretending to stay calm while their voice trembles with suppressed frustration. That tension between the intended tone and the real emotion underneath is where truth hides, and learning to hear it allows you to navigate conversations with clarity. Cultural and situational contexts influence tone as well. Some people are naturally more expressive, while others keep their voices flat and reserved. In some cultures, raising your voice is normal and not a sign of anger, while in others it may be seen as highly aggressive. What remains universal, however, is that tone changes when emotions rise. Even the most composed person cannot completely mask the strain in their voice when they're anxious, nor can they suppress the warmth that leaks into their tone when they talk about something they love. When you combine tone with body language and eye cues, the picture becomes clear. Someone may keep their face composed and their posture steady, but their voice wavers slightly when they deny something. Or their words may sound polite, but the clipped, sharp delivery tells you they're holding back irritation. Sometimes, tone even reveals things the person hasn't admitted to themselves. Fear they don't want to acknowledge, resentment they don't want to own, excitement they're not ready to share. Micro-expressions are the split-second flashes of emotion that appear on a person's face before they have the chance to hide or control them. They are fast, often lasting less than a second, and most people miss them because they are focused on the words being spoken. But if you slow yourself down, if you train your awareness, you can begin to catch those cracks in the mask. They are powerful because they are honest. No matter how polished someone's language is, no matter how calm their body posture looks, their face will still betray the truth for a brief instant. Those flashes of fear, anger, sadness, surprise, or joy are the purest signals of what someone is actually feeling. Think of the times you've seen someone smile politely, but for just a fraction of a second, their lips tightened or their eyebrows pulled together before the smile appeared. That split second was the truth. The smile was the mask. The micro-expression revealed what the words and the outward performance tried to cover. It's the same with anger. A person may calmly say they're not upset, but their nostrils flare and their eyes narrow for half a heartbeat before they regain control. That fleeting moment told you more than the next 10 sentences they spoke. What makes micro-expressions so reliable is that they bypass conscious thought. Most body language can be managed or disguised once someone becomes aware of it. People can rehearse gestures, they can practice steady eye contact, they can train their voice, but micro-expressions happen too fast to be faked consistently. They are the nervous system's raw reaction breaking through before the brain applies the filter. That is why they are called cracks in the mask. They are the slips that reveal what is hiding underneath. There are 7 universal micro-expressions tied to core human emotions: happiness, sadness, anger, fear, disgust, surprise, and contempt. These appear across all cultures and backgrounds, which means they are part of our shared human design. A quick raise of the eyebrows and widening of the eyes signals surprise. The slight lift of one side of the mouth signals contempt. A sudden wrinkle in the nose signals disgust. These flashes are recognizable even if the person tries to immediately cover them with a different expression. Once you know what to look for, you'll start seeing them everywhere, in conversations, in meetings, even in interviews on television. Micro-expressions also reveal the difference between what someone is saying and what they are feeling. For example, a person may congratulate a coworker while showing a flash of contempt. They may agree to something verbally, but their face flickers with fear for half a second. They may apologize, but a trace of anger crosses their eyes before they soften their tone. These contradictions are where the truth hides. They don't mean the person is lying about everything, but they show you the complexity of what they are experiencing. You begin to see that human communication is rarely one-dimensional. People can feel one thing and say another, and the micro-expressions give you a glimpse into the conflict. Catching micro-expressions requires slowing down your attention. They are fast, so you won't always notice them in real time. But if you train your awareness, you start to notice when someone's face doesn't quite match their words, even if you can't pinpoint it immediately. Over time, your brain becomes quicker at registering those tiny shifts. The skill is less about staring hard at people and more about being present, fully tuned in to the person in front of you. When you listen not only with your ears but also with your eyes, you start to notice the flickers that most people miss. It's also important to understand micro-expressions in context. A flicker of fear doesn't always mean danger. It could mean the person is nervous about being judged. A flash of anger doesn't always mean hostility. It could mean frustration or stress. The goal isn't to label people instantly, but to gather more pieces of the puzzle. Micro-expressions are one layer of truth that you can combine with tone, body language, and instinct to create a fuller picture. Micro-expressions are also powerful because they remind you of the humanity behind the mask. Even the most guarded person, the one who seems impossible to read, still reveals themselves in those tiny cracks. For a moment, you see the fear they're carrying, the pride they don't want to admit, the sadness they're trying to hide. And when you notice it, you gain an advantage, not to manipulate them, but to understand them better. You start to respond to who they really are in that moment, not just the role they are playing. Listening between the lines is one of the most underrated skills when it comes to reading people instantly. Most people only process the words they hear, but real communication often lives in what is not said. The pauses, the hesitations, the way someone avoids a topic, the words they repeat too often, or the details they conveniently leave out. These are the spaces where truth hides. People reveal themselves not only in their direct statements, but also in the gaps and patterns of their speech. If you want to understand intent, you have to learn to listen for the unspoken as much as for the spoken. When someone tells you a story, pay attention to what they emphasize. Repetition is rarely accidental. If they keep circling back to the same phrase, the same defense, the same reassurance, it's often because they are trying to convince either you or themselves. When a person repeats "trust me" several times, it raises the question, why do they feel the need to say it so often? That repetition is a clue that trust may not be as solid as the words suggest. On the other hand, when someone repeats a detail out of genuine passion or excitement, it comes across as natural emphasis. The key is to hear not only the words but the energy behind the repetition. Silence is another piece of the puzzle. When someone pauses too long before answering, it might signal they are carefully choosing words, which could mean they are hiding something or simply being cautious. When a conversation has sudden silence after a certain topic is brought up, that absence of response is just as meaningful as any answer. People often think silence is empty, but in truth, silence is charged. It reflects discomfort, resistance, or the weight of emotions they don't want to name. Listening between the lines means noticing those silences and asking yourself what they are holding back. Evasion is equally revealing. If you ask someone a direct question and they answer a different one, that detour tells you where they don't want to go. A classic example is when you ask, "Did you finish the project?" And instead of a yes or no, they launch into a long explanation about how busy they've been. The content of their answer is less important than the avoidance itself. The gap between the question asked and the answer given tells you their true level of comfort or honesty. Once you recognize those patterns, you begin to understand intent more clearly than if you just accepted the surface response. Another way to listen between the lines is to notice contradictions. People sometimes reveal one version of themselves in one sentence and contradict it in the next without realizing it. They may say, "I don't really care about that promotion," and a few minutes later express frustration about not being recognized. Those contradictions aren't mistakes. They are signals of inner conflict. People rarely admit their true desires outright, but when you listen carefully, you pick up on the things they claim not to care about, but still can't stop mentioning. That's where intent hides. Word choice also matters. Pay attention to qualifiers like maybe, probably, or I guess. These are often used when someone is unsure, uncommitted, or unwilling to state something directly. On the other hand, strong absolutes like always or never often exaggerate reality, which can signal defensiveness or an attempt to strengthen a weak argument. Even the smallest words can shift the meaning of a sentence, and when you listen closely, those shifts reveal more than the big, polished statements. Emotional leakage through language is another powerful clue. When someone insists they are not upset, but their sentences become sharper, shorter, or more defensive, the words themselves might deny the emotion, but the structure of the speech gives it away. Similarly, when someone says they're fine but uses sarcasm or humor as a shield, the humor becomes the unspoken confession of what they don't want to say directly. Listening between the lines means recognizing when the words are only half the story. People also reveal intent through what they consistently avoid. If there's a recurring subject that never seems to be addressed directly, that avoidance is a signal. You don't always need to push into the silence, but you should notice it. The topics people resist tell you where the truth is hiding. Sometimes intent isn't in what is said, but in what is carefully left out. This kind of listening requires patience. You have to be willing to let people talk without rushing to respond, because it's in the flow of conversation that the gaps appear. The more space you give, the more you notice what fills it and what doesn't. People often reveal more in how they shape their sentences, in what they dodge, in the tone that leaks through their reassurances, than in the actual information they share. Your gut instinct is often dismissed as just a feeling, but it's far more than that. It's your brain processing signals so quickly you don't even realize it's happening. The shift in someone's eyes, the hesitation in their voice, the way their body language doesn't match their words, all of these micro signals are being taken in by your subconscious. Your gut is the language of intuition, and it's built on millions of observations you've stored without knowing. When you get that sudden sense that something is off, it isn't magic. It's your internal radar picking up on inconsistencies before your conscious mind can explain them. Everyone has experienced this. You meet someone and instantly feel at ease, even though you can't put into words why. Or you shake someone's hand and something inside you feels unsettled, even when they smile and say all the right things. That's your gut reading the cues your rational brain hasn't had time to organize yet. The mistake people make is ignoring it, convincing themselves they need proof before trusting that instinct. But when you're trying to read people instantly, your gut is often the first and most reliable signal that something deserves your attention. Gut instinct also protects you. Think about the times you walked into a room and felt tension before anyone spoke. You couldn't point to a single piece of evidence, but your body knew. Your gut picked up on the stiffness in posture, the lack of natural movement, the absence of ease in the air. You didn't analyze it, you just felt it. That instinct is your body's way of keeping you safe, alerting you to what's unspoken. The more you learn to respect that feeling, the sharper it becomes. It's not paranoia. It's perception working faster than analysis. Trusting your gut also deepens connection. Just as it warns you when something is off, it also signals when something is right. You sense authenticity in people who aren't performing. You feel drawn to those whose energy resonates with your own. That pull is your subconscious recognizing alignment in their tone, expression, and body language. When your gut says, "This person is safe," it's because every layer of their communication matches up. That's why you sometimes bond with someone within minutes as if you've known them for years. Your gut bypasses logic and goes straight to truth. The challenge is that many people silence their gut. They've been taught to second guess themselves, to overanalyze, or to dismiss their instincts as irrational. But gut instinct is not irrational. It's the most efficient form of reasoning. It's based on experience, memory, and perception working together faster than conscious thought. When you override it, you often regret it later. How many times have you said, "I knew something felt off, but I ignored it"? That regret is the cost of silencing your instinct. Your gut speaks not only through thought, but also through your body. A tightening in your chest, a sudden restlessness, a knot in your stomach. These physical sensations are your instinct trying to get your attention. They show up when something in your environment doesn't match, when someone's behavior contradicts their words, when a hidden danger or dishonesty is present. On the flip side, calmness in your body, a sense of ease or expansion, signals alignment. Listening to those signals is part of learning the language of intuition. Gut instinct becomes even more reliable when you combine it with conscious observation. The more you pay attention to eyes, body language, tone, and micro-expressions, the stronger your gut becomes because it has more data to process. Your subconscious picks up on these details whether you realize it or not, but when you practice noticing them consciously, you sharpen the accuracy of your intuition. You stop confusing fear with instinct, anxiety with awareness. Over time, you can tell the difference between a gut warning rooted in perception and a fear reaction rooted in past experiences. Another key to trusting your gut is reflection. When you feel that instinctive pull or push, take a mental note. Later, compare it to the outcome. Was your initial feeling accurate? Did your body sense something before your mind caught up? The more you test it, the more you'll realize your gut has been right more often than not. This builds confidence in listening to it the next time. Your instinct grows stronger the more you acknowledge it, because you're training yourself to respect that language instead of silencing it. Your gut is not infallible, but it is invaluable. It's the compass that helps you navigate complex interactions without needing every answer spelled out. It's the whisper that tells you when someone isn't being genuine, when a situation requires caution, or when an opportunity is safe to trust. It's a skill as much as it is a feeling, and the more you practice reading it, the clearer it becomes.